Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namaskaram. Today I'm going to be talking about verse 25 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham. Last time we talked about verses 23 and 24, which were the last two of a series of verses that Bhagavan translated from Yoga Vashista about what is the real heart. And the essence of those verses, the real heart is not any organ in the body or any place in the body, but is only the one infinite awareness, which is the mirror in which all the entire world appearance appears or seems to exist. Not that it appears in the view of the real awareness, it appears only in the view of ego, but ego itself arises from and in that real awareness, or seems to. But in the view of real awareness, there's no such thing as ego or world at all. So the last of those 4 verses was verse 24, and I'll just read the meaning of that once again, because it's closely connected with the meaning of this verse. Actually, Bhagavan put these 2 verses together because they're saying much the same thing. That is, in verse 24, what he says is, therefore is after talking about what is the nature of the real heart, therefore, by means of fixing the mind in the pure heart, which is composed of awareness, complete dissolution of breath along with inclinations will be achieved automatically. Inclinations is vast. The Tamil word is vardhane, which is a Tamil form of vasanas, and refers here to the Vishaya vasanas. The Vishaya vasanas exist only for ego, just as the body and breath exist only for ego. So by fixing the mind in the pure heart, which is composed of awareness, we thereby eradicate ego, and by eradicating ego, we bring about the dissolution of breath along with all the vasanas. When he says fixing the mind in the pure heart, in the pure heart is the word he uses is idiyate, which is actually the inflection. Idea 2 is it's an intensified form of idea 2, which is the inflectional base of ideam, heart, but is used here in a locative sense. So it can mean fixing the mind in the pure heart or fixing the mind on the pure heart. So what he implies is we have to fix our attention on ourselves, thereby the mind will subside back into the heart, because the pure heart is what we actually are, the pure awareness I am. So that is the meaning of that verse. Then in this verse, which is he translated from, that was translated from Yoga Vashista. This verse he translated from Devikalotram, one of the Upa-agamas, one of the Shaiva Upa-agamas, one of the subsidiary agamas, which are the fundamental, the primary texts of Shaiva Siddhanta, but which generally don't contain much non-dualistic content. But this particular work, this particular chapter of Devikalotram is very non-dualistic, which is why Bhagavan translated the whole thing into Tamil. This is an alternative translation of verse 47 of Devikalotram. I'll talk a little bit more about that afterwards. So what he says in this verse is, Akila upadi ahandra aribu edu aham achivam endru anisam ahate akala dhyanam adanal ahatin akila asati ahatru. What that means is um, by incessantly uninterrupted meditation in the heart. It can mean meditation in the heart or meditation on the heart. Again, it's a locative form of ahate is used here in a locative sense, and locative can mean either in or on. In English, we generally talk of fixing the mind on something. When we attend to something, we are fixing our mind on it. So meditation in the heart or meditation on the heart. And then he describes that meditation of the heart. What awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shivam is I. So by that uninterrupted meditation, dispel every attachment of the mind. Bhagavan's verses are very, very compact, so we can sometimes draw out the meaning more clearly by slightly paraphrasing it. So a paraphrase of it, an explanatory paraphrase of this would be, by incessantly uninterrupted meditation in or on the heart, what awareness is devoid of every upadhi. Upadhi means adjunct in the sense of everything that one mistakes oneself to be, thereby limiting oneself and disguising or obscuring one's real nature. That Shivam is I. And Shivam, in Tamil, the Shiva as a god is referred to as Shivan. That makes it Shivan, the final N makes it a personal noun. Shivam is an abstract form of the same noun. So Shiva means auspicious substance or Mangala Vastu, which is Shiva in his ultimate form as the one self-shining awareness nature, Chit Swarupa, meaning awareness as it actually is. Dispel every attachment in the mind. So by that meditation of the heart, dispel every attachment of the mind. The meditation of the heart is to be done with the understanding of what is in Tamil given prior to the word endru. Endru is an adverbial participle that can mean that or as, in the sense of when we say he said that such and such. Endru would be used there in Tamil. It also often is used in the sense of inverted commas, where we would use inverted commas in English. In Tamil, the word endru will come. So it indicates a quotation, but not necessarily. I mean, it's not necessarily actual words spoken. It can be an indirect quotation or merely what is thought, or it can, in this case, it expresses an understanding. So with the understanding that the awareness devoid of every adjunct is I, that is this clause that in Tamil, what awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shivam is I. This type of sentence formation we come across a lot in Tamil and also in Sanskrit. In English, we would normally express it slightly different. We would say that Shiva, which is the awareness devoid of every adjunct, is I. But this is the way it is expressed in Tamil and would also be expressed in Sanskrit. What awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shiva is I. So in this case, Bhagavan isn't asking us to meditate on this idea, what awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shiva is I. That is the understanding with which we need to fix our mind on the heart. Meditation means fixing the mind on or attending to. So we fix our mind on the heart, and that heart is awareness, as he explained in the earlier verses. So by incessantly meditating on the heart, in other words, on ourself, who is the awareness devoid of every adjunct, and which is Shivam. So with the understanding that what awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shivam is I, with that understanding, meditating on that awareness, which is what is called the heart, dispel every attachment of the mind. That's the idea of the verse. As I mentioned earlier, this verse was is a translation of a verse from Devi Kalotram. When Bhagavan was living on the hill, I think in the Virupaksha cave, when he was living in Virupaksha cave, or quite early on, I can't remember exactly what year it is, but this is one of the first works that Bhagavan wrote, was his Tamil translation of this chapter of Devi Kalotram. It's called Devi Kalotram Jnana-vichara. Jnana-achara vichara padalam. Padalam means chapter. So the chapter about Jnana-achara vichara, that is a chapter investigating the Jnana-achara. That means the practice of jnana, we can say. So this is one chapter of this Upagama called Devi Kalotram. Devi Kalotram means Kalotra means Kala Uttara. So what the title implies is at the final time of her maturity, that is when she is fully matured, these are the teachings that Lord Shiva gave to Devi. That is, I think, the implication of the title. So these are final teachings given, and this particular chapter is about the path of the non-dualistic path of jnana. But a non-dualistic path or non-dualistic practice means the only non-dualistic practice or Advaita Abhyasa is self-attentiveness. Because if we attend to anything other than ourself, there is duality. There's the one who is attending and whatever is attended to. But in self-attentiveness, there are no two things, because the one who is attending and the one who is being attended to are one and the same. So this practice of self-attentiveness that Bhagavan has taught us, this alone is the real Advaita Abhyasa. So this is what is being indirectly pointed at in this chapter of Devi Kalotram. Obviously, it's not expressed there as clearly and unambiguously as Bhagavan has expressed it in his own works, which he composed later. But it's a very, for an ancient text, and particularly one of the agamas, which belongs to the, which is one of the fundamental texts of Shaiva Siddhanta, it's very significant that the non-dualistic Advaita implication of this particular chapter, which is why Bhagavan translated it. So, when he first translated, he translated the whole work. Sometime later, we don't know exactly when, but sometime between the time when he translated the whole of Devi Kalotram and the time when he composed Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, because this alternative translation was existent at the time Bhagavan pre-existed Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. The reason why Bhagavan translated this verse twice, that is, he at one point, probably sometime in the 1920s, but it could have been even earlier, Bhagavan composed a set of 3 verses. The 3 verses are verses 46 and 47 of Devi Kalotram, and the final verse of the Katha Rudra Upanishad. He composed these 3 verses together, and he composed translations of these 3 verses together as one set of verses. this verse verse 46 is his alternative translation of verse 46 is now verse 9 in Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, which we talked about some months ago. Verse 47 is verse 25 in Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, and verse 40 is and the verse of the Katharudra Upanishad is the final verse of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham. So these verse 9 and 25, verses 9 and 25 are alternative translations of the verses that he had already translated. The reason he translated them in, he translated these alternative versions is clear in Tamil if we read these three verses together, because they all play on the word aham. All three of these verses, that is 47 and 40, 46 and 47 of Devi Kalotram, and the last verse of Katharudra Upanishad. In this alternative translations, Bhagavan, well, for Katharudra Upanishad, it wasn't an alternative translation, it's his only translation of that. But in all of them, the verses play on the word aham. If for those who know Tamil, if they read these verses together, it's very clear how Bhagavan is handling this word aham. Aham is both a word of Tamil origin and a word of Sanskrit origin. It's got a double meaning in Tamil. That is, the Tamil word aham means what is inside, or it can mean heart or mind or home. And the Sanskrit word aham is the first person pronoun I. So Bhagavan, since I is the heart, Bhagavan often uses the word aham in a double sense, both in the Tamil sense and in the Sanskrit sense. So if we read these three verses together, in then well, it's clearly in Tamil because of the use of the word aham, but I'll just so anyone who knows Tamil can read these three verses together. In fact, in my on my blog, where I give a translation of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, at the end of a translation, I repeat my translation of these three verses, just so that Tamilians particularly can see the beauty of Bhagavan's Tamil, the way he framed these ideas in his Tamil verses. So what these three verses mean, verse 46 of Devi Kalotram, which is verse 9 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, means what awareness is the blemishless, motionless I form. I form means it's the aha uruvam. That means, that implies the aham swarupa. That is the real nature of I, the swarupa or real nature of I. So what awareness is the blemishless, motionless I form in the heart lotus, only that awareness, which is I, is what will give inner liberation by removing I. So when he said that awareness, which is I, here he's using I to refer to I as it actually is, devoid of all adjuncts. And the I that will be removed is ego, which is the same I mixed and conflated with adjuncts. So this is it's very beautiful. And as I say, he's used the word aham here, both in the sense of I, when he refers to the aha uruvam, aham uruvam, of the I form, or aham swarupa, And when he said that awareness, which is I, he again uses aham. And removing I, he again uses aham. He also uses aham when he says the heart lotus, the aha kamalam. So Bhagavan, in many verses we can see, even the first verse of Aksharamlai, Bhagavan is playing on this word aham, both using it both in the Tamil sense and in the Sanskrit sense. Then verse 25, the verse we've just seen, by incessantly uninterrupted meditation on the heart, what awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shivam is I, dispel every attachment in the mind. So again here, he's playing on the word aham, which means both I and means heart. And then in verse 40, which he translated from the Katarudra Upanishad, what he says is, I shall proclaim truly Akila Vedanta Siddhanta Saram. That means the essence or core of the final conclusion of all Vedanta. And that conclusion is, if I dying, I become that I, which is the form of awareness, alone is what remains. So again, here he's using aham only in the sense of I, but he's using it to refer sometimes to I as it actually is, and sometimes to I as it seems to be in the form of ego. So the I that dies obviously is ego. And when he says I become that, that is when the adjuncts drop off, I remains as it is, which is that. That meaning here referring to Brahman. I become that I, which is the form of awareness. Again, he uses, how does he say form of awareness? Yes. Arivuruvam of aham. That I, which is the form of awareness, implies the Chit Swarupa or Jnana Swarupa, namely awareness as it actually is. That alone is what remains. So the implication of this is, when ego dies, what remains is only the one real I, which is the underlying reality of ego. So when ego dies, that means when the adjuncts drop off, what was previously appearing as ego will be recognized as it really is, which is that, referring to Brahman, and that I, which is Chit Swarupa or Jnana Swarupa, awareness as it actually is, that alone is what remains. So these three verses were a very beautiful set of three verses, but later when these were three among the 21 verses that Murugan had gathered together when he asked Bhagavan to compose Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. And almost all the verses that pre-existed Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu were, as during the process when Bhagavan was composing Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, one by one, Bhagavan and Murugan set aside the earlier verses. So in the end, the Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu was an entirely new work, and the verses that remained over were then formed into Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham. And at that time, this set of three verses, in order to, because Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, Bhagavan and Murugan are arranged carefully in an order where where the ideas were sequential, these three verses became split up and became eventually, when Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, at first it was just I think at first it was just 21 verses, and then it became 30, and then it increased. Finally, it became 40. So now these are verses 9, 25, and 40. So coming back to the main verse we're talking about today, verse 25, as I say, the The meaning of verse 25 is, by incessantly uninterrupted meditation in the heart, what awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shivam is I, dispel every attachment of the mind. Implying by what he means by meditation in the heart, or meditation on the heart, is self-attentiveness, and that self-attentiveness is done with the understanding that what awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shivam is I. So the other form of the same verse, when he composed Devi Kalotram, the earlier form of this verse, the verse was more or less the same meaning, but slight difference. The verse he composed was Sarva Upadiyam Saradu Uڵḷadu Uruvam Edu Ondru Uڵḷadu Nirantaram Anda Shivam Aham Endru Anbal Dhyanite Enda Asatyam Ni Etru. That means incessantly meditating with love. What one existing awareness nature exists unconnected with all adjuncts, all upadis, that Shiva is I, sever you each and every attachment, or may you sever each and every attachment. So what is here that is not in the other version, Bhagavan added the word anbal. That is the key to self-investigation is love. As Bhagavan often used to say, bhakti is the mother of jnana. Because in order to turn our attention within and to thereby subside and dissolve back into the heart, that requires great love. Because by turning our attention within, we are thereby surrendering ourselves. That is, we are giving up our false identification, namely ego, that ego is that false identification, I am this body, or that which identifies itself as I am this body, that is ego. By turning our attention back to ourselves, we bring about the subsidence and eventual dissolution of ego. So this is the practice of a complete self-surrender, giving ourselves entirely to God. So this can be done only with great love. So long as we have lingering desires and attachments in our mind, so long as the Vishaya vasanas are still lurking there in our mind, we are reluctant to surrender ourselves completely because we want to continue rising and going outwards. So it's only the all-consuming love to know and to be what we actually are, but will overcome all our desires and attachments. So the means to cultivate this love is this practice of self-attentiveness. But this practice of self-attentiveness requires love. It may seem like a catch-22 situation, but you need love to attend to yourself. And in order to get that love, you need to attend to yourself. But that's why patient and persistent practice is necessary. None of us have sufficient love, because if we had sufficient love, we would turn our attention completely within and dissolve back into our source. So we're still lacking love. But the very fact that we are attracted to Bhagavan's teachings and we aspire to follow his teachings, even if we feel we're not following them very well, that itself shows the seed of love has been sown in our heart by his grace. So it's only by persevering in this practice that this small seed of love can be nurtured and nourished and allowed to grow into this into the mighty tree of bhakti that will completely split this false awareness, I am this body, that is it, that will separate the pure I from all these adjuncts with which it is now mixed. So in this, in the verse 25 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, Bhagavan talks about meditating in the heart, which can also be taken as meditating on the heart. So that is more explicitly referring to self-attentiveness, meditation on the heart. Here it's not so explicit, but again, it is implied that in incessantly meditating with love, what one existing awareness nature exists unconnected with all adjuncts, that Shivam is I. In other words, what we need to meditate on is that one awareness that is devoid of all adjuncts. And that is what we really are. So that is what we need to meditate upon. Obviously, it doesn't mean just meditating on the idea that this awareness devoid of all adjuncts, that Shivam, who is this awareness devoid of all adjuncts, is I. But if we think like that, we're then meditating not on that awareness, but on the thought that Shiva is I, or that Shiva, who is the awareness devoid of all adjuncts, is I. That is just an idea. In order to know ourselves as we actually are, meditating on some thought about ourselves is not sufficient. We need to meditate on ourselves alone. But we need to meditate on ourselves with the understanding that that awareness that shines devoid of all adjuncts, that is what we really are. So we need to hold firmly to that awareness devoid of adjuncts. Of course, when we start off this practice of self-investigation, we who are practicing are that awareness mixed with adjuncts, but the more we hold on to the awareness, the adjuncts will slip off and that pure awareness alone will remain. And so that the slipping off of the adjuncts is tantamount to the severing of every attachment, because the primary attachment we have is to the adjuncts that we take ourselves to be, namely this body consisting of 5 sheaths. If we give up this dehabhimana, this primary attachment, this attachment to the body as I, body meaning all the 5 sheaths, if we give up this, we thereby give up all other attachment, because this is the dehabhimana is the root of all attachments. So we can give up this dehabhimana only by meditating with love on the pure I, that is, by meditating on I, we are thereby separating the pure I from all the adjuncts with which it is now seems to be mixed. That is, these adjuncts are not holding on to us. We are holding on to them. When we rise as ego, it's we who grasp the adjuncts and say, I am this body. But so instead of holding on to the adjuncts, if we hold on to ourselves, onto our own being, because to the extent to which we hold on to ourselves, we thereby let go of everything else. So when we let go of the adjuncts, they will slip off, and then the pure I, which is what we really are, alone will remain. So these are very subtle pointers that Bhagavan is giving us here. It's very easy to misinterpret these verses, to take them to be implying Soham Bhavana, but that clearly is not what Bhagavan meant. If Bhagavan took these verses to be Soham Bhavana, he wouldn't have translated them. The fact he translated these verses means that he's seeing the deeper implication. What may superficially seem to be a description of Soham Bhavana actually has a much deeper meaning. Soham Bhavana means the meditation, Soham, I am he, I am Shiva, I am whatever, I am Brahman or whatever. That is just meditating on a thought. We need to understand that I is nothing but Brahman, I is nothing but Shiva, And with that understanding, we need to meditate on I alone. That is, if we truly understand Shivoham, I am Shiva, or Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, then there's no need to continue thinking about Shiva or Brahman. All we need to attend to is I, because that I is itself Brahman, that I is itself Shiva. That is, Shiva and Brahman are names given to that pure I, which is what we actually are. And that pure I is pure awareness. So that is what we need to meditate on. And we need to meditate on it with love. Sorry, that was a rather long explanation connecting many things together, but I hope what I tried to explain was somewhat clear.
Thank you, Michael. Regarding the verse, I know this is a translation of a verse from Devi Kalotram, which you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So, which is from the Jnana Vichara Padalam.
Yes.
So, what's the significance of the Achara part in this title?
Achara, I think it means something like conduct. I don't think there's any adequate English word for it, but I think the closest we can say is the conduct. But the conduct is not just talking about, jnana conduct is not just outward conduct, it's inward conduct. The conduct of focusing our attention on ourselves.
But Bhagavan's teachings, like if we focus our attention on ourselves, we practice self-attention repeatedly, automatically that should take care of the achara part, right?
That is the achara part.
Right.
And that is the true achara.
Right.
Focusing our attention on ourselves. Because anything else entails the rising of ego, and rising of ego is not jnanachara. Jnanachara is the subsidence, and being without rising is the jnanachara. And we can bring about that state of being without rising only by attending to ourselves.
Having said that, I think in that work, he also talks about a lot of acharas, some do's and don'ts kind of thing.
Yeah, because
and they
we
are
have to
useful
see
to
the
some
text
extent.
in its context.
In the context, right.
It is a part of agamas, but it's
Right.
of all the Shaiva agamas, well, the Shaiva agamas, it's a vast body of text. So I don't know if anyone's read all of them. There may be some pundits who are familiar with all of them, but it just so, by divine providence, this particular chapter of Devi Kalotram was brought to Bhagavan's attention. And since he saw that it is clearly, since he saw its very clear Advaitic import, he translated it.
Right. Thank you,
That
Michael.
is generally Shaiva Siddhanta is generally considered to be a dualistic system. But from one of the earliest works of Shaiva Siddhanta is Tirumula's Tirumantaram. And that's a mixture of many things, but there's a lot of non-dualistic content or non-dualistic implication in Tirumantaram. So though later forms of Shaiva Siddhanta tended to lean more towards dualistic interpretation, Shaiva Siddhanta never completely left its non-dualistic roots.
Say that again. Is Shaiva Siddhanta never completely left the non-dualistic route?
It never completely left it. That
Right,
is, though,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I think, I think somewhere around the Meghandra Shastras, that's around, I think it seems like it took a sort of a dualistic turn. If we really strictly look at the original script, which is Tirumula's Tirumandaram, it's very non-dualistic. That's how I see it.
Yeah. And also, that is the Kashmir Shaivism,
yeah,
is also a branch of it's the origins of Kashmir Shaivism and Shaiva Siddhanta. They share common origin, common roots. Kashmir Shaivism tended to retain the non-dualistic elements to a greater extent than Shaiva Siddhanta. But even Kashmir Shaivism, though it claims to be non-dualistic, there's a lot of dualistic ideas there. Like in Kashmir Shaivism, they insist that the world is real. Like the world is nothing but Shiva, but world is real. So it's even in Kashmir Shaivism, a lot of the non-duality has been very much diluted. But to find really pure non-duality is very, very rare. That is, Bhagavan is, I would say, the purest, Bhagavan's teachings are the purest expression of non-duality, closely followed probably by Gaudapada. But many of what is taken to be much of what is taken to be Advaita, even in Advaita Vedanta, as Bhagavan himself pointed out, the ultimate truth of Advaita Vedanta is Ajata. But that's not a practical teaching, because that's pointing to to the final conclusion. But now Ajata is contrary to our present experience. We now experience the appearance of the world. Ajata completely denies that anything has ever appeared. So because as Bhagavan begins Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, Nāmullahum Kandala, because we see the world, teachings are necessary. And the teachings have to accept the world at least as an appearance. So the purest form of practical Advaita is what Bhagavan taught, which is what is called Drishti Shrishti Vada. But there's no creation independent of our perception. That is, this world is created by our perception of it. Just as a dream, the world, everything that we experience in a dream has no existence whatsoever, independent of our perception of it or experience of it. Likewise, this world has no experience, has no existence independent of our perception of it. That is the purest form of Advaita in practical terms. But because many people are not ready to accept that, the majority of Advaita teachings, works like Vedanta Sara and so many other classical texts of Advaita philosophy, they embrace a certain form of Shrishti Drishti Vada. That is, they accept that the world somehow exists independent of our perception of it. So long as you accept that the world exists independent of your perception of it, but they nevertheless say the world is just vivata, it's just an illusory appearance. But there's an inconsistency between saying that everything is just an appearance and saying that it exists independent of the perceiver. It's a diluted form of Advaita. So a lot of classical Advaita is actually very diluted, whereas Bhagavan has given us Advaita in a much purer form.
But Michael, isn't Drishti Shrishti simultaneous appearance of the Chidjada Granti?
Yes, that is Drishti Shrishti is also sometimes called Yugapat Shrishti. Yugapat Shrishti means simultaneous creation. That is our seeing our perception and the creation happen simultaneously. As soon as we rise as ego, the creation is brought into existence. So it's called simultaneous creation.
But then how it happens from Purnam, from absolute, because in Advaita we don't have volition. So, and we don't have form in order to attach. So somehow from Purnam we have to make Drishti Shrishti jump. And this is for me the craziest part, yeah.
Yeah, this
very
is
difficult to explain.
Yeah, it cannot be explained.
Because we don't have volition. In Kashmir Shaivism, they say Brahman have volitional part, and he just wanted to make fun or just wanted to experience itself.
But the ultimate aim of Advaita, of Advaita philosophy, is not to explain everything, but to make us see things as they actually are. We can see everything else as it actually is only by seeing ourselves as we actually are. So the explanations are useful to the extent to which they point us towards the practice, which is self-attentiveness. But not everything can be explained. Bhagavan, in effect, taught us that asking how or why is the wrong question. When we asking, Bhagavan sometimes said, asking how or why Maya came into existence, or how or why ego has arisen, which amounts to the same thing, is like asking how or why was the son of a barren woman born. The son of a barren woman, there's no such thing as a son of a barren woman, because if a woman is barren, it means she's got no children. If she's got a son, then she's not barren. So the son of a barren woman is like a square circle. It's a logical impossibility. Ego or Maya is as non-existent as the son of a barren woman or a square circle. So Bhagavan said that we cannot explain why or how ego has come into existence. But if we investigate ego to see, has it ever come into existence, we will find that it has never come into existence, so no explanation is necessary. An explanation seems to be necessary because we seem to have risen as ego. We seem to have risen as ego only because we haven't investigated ourselves. If we investigate ourselves, we will see that we are ever Sat-Chit, which is immutable, that never undergoes any change. As he says in verse 24 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, Sat-Chit Uḷḷadu, Sat-Chit does not rise. So there is no such thing as ego. But we who now experience all this are ego. So all this, that is, ego seems to be real, and all this seems to be real only because we haven't attended to ourselves. So long as we attend to anything other than ourselves, we create, by attending to things other than ourselves, we create the semi-existence and simultaneously create the semi-existence of ourself as ego who sees all of them. That is, the rising of ego and the rising of other things occurs simultaneously. As Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, ahande undayin anetum undahum. If ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Ahande indrail indru anatum. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ahande yavamam. Ego itself is everything. That is, the very nature of ego is to see itself as all this multiplicity. So all this multiplicity is nothing other than ego. So all this seems to exist only, as Bhagavan said, because of avichara, because of non-investigation, because we fail to attend to ourselves. All this seems to exist. If we attend to ourselves, we will find no such thing as ego has ever arisen. As he says in verse 17 of Upadeshundya, Manatin uruve maravadu chava manamenum ondrile. If one investigates without forgetting, if one investigates the form of mind, in other words, if one investigates what the mind essentially is, without forgetting, that is, without allowing our attention to be diverted away towards anything else, there's no such thing as mind at all. Their mind, he's using mind as a synonym for ego. So we cannot and need not explain why ego came into existence, because it has never really come into existence. All we need to do is to investigate it. And if we investigate it, then it will be clear to us that no such thing has ever arisen, and therefore no explanation is necessary. If we want an explanation for everything, then that is Brahma flying upwards in the form of a swan. In the story of the origin of Arunachala, Brahma took the form of Brahma, who represents the outward going intellect, took the form of a swan and flew upwards, and ended up just telling a lie. So if we allow our intellect to go outwards, looking for religious, scientific, or philosophical explanations, we'll end up with just a lie. The proper way is to do as Brahma did, take the form of a boar and burrow deep down inside.
Vishnu.
Vishnu, Vishnu. They take the form of a boar and burrow deep inside. That is, we as ego have created all this mess. So we can undo all this mess only by turning back within and burrowing deep into our own heart, where we will find, when we go deep in the heart and expose ourselves to the light of pure awareness in all its purity, it will be clear that no such thing as ego has ever arisen. So all the teachings are given because ego seems to have arisen. But that's why Bhagavan doesn't say, when ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. He doesn't say when, he says if. The implication is that ego has never actually come into existence. It just seems to have come into existence. And because it seems to have come into existence, everything else seems to have come into existence.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Just coming back to the verse, just wanted to make this very subtle point which you mentioned, and that is the Shivam, the differentiating Shivam from Shiva.
Yeah.
Or to pronounce it the Tamil way, it's Shivam from Shiva.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. The Shivam refers to the awareness, the one self-shining awareness, as you call it, nature, or Chitswarupa, whereas Shiva represents a personal God.
But both are one. We shouldn't think they're
both are one,
two.
Right?
It is like Saguna and Niguna Brahman.
Right.
Niguna Brahman is referred to as Shivam, the abstract, impersonal form. The Saguna Brahman is referred to as Shivan.
Right.
But Brahman is only one, Shiva is only one, they're not two. But it's just how we view, that is the Saguna Brahman, is how Brahman appears to us so long as we rise as ego. So long as we look outwards, we can see, Brahman appears in the form of God, who is Saguna Brahman.
Which is bhakti, a bhakti form.
Well, bhakti means the love that we have. Bhakti is neither.
Right, but it's an outward form.
Yes, but we shouldn't take bhakti just to be limited to outward form. The true bhakti, the bhakti in its purest form, is understanding, as Bhagavan says, Anya Bhava, in verse 8 of Upadeshundya, Anya Bhavatin Avana Hamahum, Ananya Bhava Mayundi Para, Anatina Mutamo Mundi Para. Rather than the Anya Bhava, taking God to be something other than ourselves, and meditating on him accordingly, Ananya Bhava, meditating on nothing other than oneself, with the understanding that he is I, that is best among all. And by the strength, and he goes on in the next verse to say, by the strength of that Ananya Bhava, in other words, by the strength of self-attentiveness, being in Sat Bhava, the state of being, which transcends bhavana, transcends all mental activity, that is Parabhakti Tattva. So it's a wrong idea that bhakti refers only to Anya Bhakti.
Right. It's not just an outward, but if you could say Yana Bhakti or Bhakti Yana.
You can say it in any way you like, but Bhakti in its purest form and Jnana, they are one and the same.
They're one and the same. Exactly. Yeah. Got it. I have a question about that Acharya. Is the A like Achala, is it a negation?
Achara.
Acharya.
Acharya is different. Acharya means a teacher, but this is Jnanachara.
Charya means behavior, like Kumar was indicating.
I don't know the etymology of these words, but Acharya means a teacher.
A teacher.
Right. But that's a different word. This is achara.
Achara. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, achara. Achara.
Okay.
Deals with conduct.
Right. Because I looked it up. I looked up chara. I mean, the spelling was with a Y, but it said behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, because a lot of these, they're different forms of the same word. Like brahmacharya means the conduct suitable
of a
to Brahman.
Suitable,
so,
right.
But in usual usage, brahmacharya means celibacy. But Bhagavan gave a deeper meaning to brahmacharya, means abiding as Brahman, being as Brahman, by not rising as ego. That is the true brahmacharya.
That's what I was asking about the A. If it was leaning that direction.
But I think there's connection between these words, but exactly how that is etymology of Sanskrit words there's a lot of connection between words.
Yeah.
So let's skip the etymology part and then go back to the verse.
Thing is, we need to be as we actually are, and to be as we actually are, we need to meditate on our self for heart, which is pure awareness.
There's one subtle point I wanted to mention, which is we talked about Shivam versus Shiva, and I just wanted to let everyone know that on purpose, we make sure we don't put an uppercase S for Shivam, because it just refers to the awareness rather than to the personal God. So please don't email me saying that there was a typo or something in Patha Sri Ramana or Michael's book. The Shivam, the S in Shivam is purposely lowercase for that reason. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to mention. Okay,
well,
now
in Tamil and Sanskrit, there is no such thing as uppercases. So that is the trouble with using uppercase in English. For example, people often use uppercase S for self. Then we are forcing a duality. We've got two selves. You've got a lowercase self and an uppercase self. It unnecessarily creates confusion. Bhagavan, in Tamil, Bhagavan often just refers to Tan. Tan means oneself. In the same verse, in the same sentence, he uses Tan multiple times, sometimes referring to ego, sometimes referring to our real nature, sometimes in such a way that we cannot define it as this or that. For example, in the word Atma-vichara, does Atma refer to Ourself as ego or ourself as we really are? It's meaningless to try and
meaningless to investigate that. Yeah.
In some contexts, it's important to make the distinction. In some contexts, it's better to leave it, because ultimately there is only one self. There's our self as we actually are, is what appears as ego.
So now let's get into the practice of self-investigation. There are some newcomers in this group today. And for that benefit, before I go to the questions, could you just briefly explain the practice of self-investigation? Then we'll get to the questions.
The practice of self-investigation is extremely simple, but at the same time, extremely subtle. So we can really understand what is self-investigation only by practicing self-investigation. That is, the more we practice self-investigation, the clearer it will be to us what is meant by self-attentiveness. That is, self-investigation, Bhagavan has defined it in Nana. He says, Sada kalamum manate atma-vichara Atma-vichara mendrupaya. That means always the name Atma-vichara is only for always keeping the mind on oneself. That is the definition. In other words, Atma-vichara is nothing but keeping our mind always on ourselves. Keeping our mind on ourselves means keeping our attention on ourselves. So the implication of that definition given by Bhagavan is that self-attentiveness alone is self-investigation. So what is self-attentiveness? To understand that, firstly, we need to understand what we are and what we are not. We are not what we now seem to be. We now seem to be this person. This person is a bundle of 5 sheaths: the physical form of the body, the life that animates this body, and the mind, intellect, and will that operate within this body. These 5 are referred to as the 5 sheaths, and this makes up the body or person that we take ourselves to be. But all these 5 sheaths are jada. That means they're devoid of awareness. They seem to be endowed with awareness only because we, as ego, identify them as I. Because ego is in essence just awareness. But it's not pure awareness, because it's awareness mixed and conflated with adjuncts. That is why it's referred to as Chit Jada Granti. Chit means awareness. Jada means what is not aware. What is not aware in this context refers to the body consisting of 5 sheaths, these 5 sheaths. In other words, the physical form of the body, the life, the mind, the intellect, and the will. These are all objects known by us. So they're devoid of awareness. They seem to be endowed with awareness because of our identification with them. So ego by ego, can you just for everyone's sake, can you just explain ego? And you keep referring to ego. What exactly does that mean? Ego is, there is just one I. That one I in its pure form is just I, nothing other than I. But when we rise as ego, we identify ourselves as a body. We identify a body as I. So ego is the false awareness, I am this body. The false awareness, I am this body, means that which is aware of itself as I am this body. That is not other than the pure I, but it's the pure I appearing in a distorted form, because the I is always only one. There are not 2 I, there's only one I, but there's what we actually are is I in its pure form, devoid of all adjuncts. That's what Bhagavan refers to in this verse. What awareness is devoid of every adjunct, that Shiva is I. So the The awareness devoid of adjuncts, that is the pure I. Ego is the same pure I, but mixed and conflated with adjuncts. So
you're explaining the practice of self-investigation. Sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the problem, as Bhagavan said, we always know ourselves. There is never a moment when we do not know ourselves. But what we actually are is just the pure I am. There is never a moment when we are not aware I am. But when we rise as ego, we don't cease to be aware I am, but we are not aware of ourselves as just I am. We're aware of ourselves as I am this person, I am Michael, I am this body. That false awareness of ourselves is what obscures the awareness of ourselves as we actually are. So we need to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. When we're aware of ourselves as we actually are, this false identification, I am this body, will thereby be destroyed. So we seem to be ego so long as we don't investigate ourselves sufficiently deeply and keenly. So investigating ourselves means turning our attention back towards ourselves. That means turning our attention back to the mere awareness I. And so we, in classical Advaita, they have what are called prakriyas. Prakriyas means, many scholars take prakriyas to be the practice, but they're not. The prakriyas are just preliminary lines of reasoning to help us distinguish ourselves from all that we are not. So one of the prakriyas is drik drisya viveka, distinguishing the seer from the seen. Literally it means, but it implies the knower from the known. So all objects or phenomena, including this body, this life in this body, the mind, the intellect, the will, these are all objects. They're all things known by us. We are the knower of them. So we need to, this is one line of thinking that helps us to recognize that we are something distinct from, we are not anything that is perceived. As Buddha said, sarva dharma anatta. That means all dharmas are anatta. Dharma in that context means all phenomena. That is nothing, no object, no phenomenon is what we actually are, because they are all things known by us. We are the knower. That's one way of helping us to distinguish ourselves from all other things. Another prakriya is the analysis of the three states: waking, dream, and sleep. Now in this waking state, we identify with this body. In dream, we seem to be the same person, but the body we experience as ourselves in dream is actually different. Though it seems to be the same body, it's actually a different body, because if the body in dream is injured, when we wake up, we find that injury hasn't affected this body at all. Or if this body is injured, we may have a dream in which we're free of all injury. So it's not the same body, but it seems to be the same body. That is, so long as we're dreaming, we seem to be the same waking person. It seems to us that is what is actually a dream seems to us to be a continuity of this waking state. So analyzing that and then understanding, and this is what many people find difficult to recognize, but it's very important to understand, is that in sleep, we cease to be aware of anything other than ourselves, but we don't cease to be aware of ourselves. We are still aware.
Deep sleep.
In deep sleep.
Deep sleep. Right.
Deep sleep, yeah, that means dreamless sleep. Right. When I generally in the context of Bhagavan teachings, when we talk about sleep, sleep is referring to deep sleep, dreamless sleep. So in dreamless sleep, though we cease to be aware of anything other than ourselves, we don't cease to be aware of ourselves. Why is that? I mean, many people say, no, I'm not aware of anything in sleep. But when we wake up from sleep, we are aware that we were in a state in which we were not aware of anything. So how are we aware of having been in that state in which we were not aware of anything if we were not aware in that state? What we are aware of in sleep is only our own being, I am. If we're able, we need to think deeply about it to understand it, but if we're able to grasp that, that is a very useful pointer for this practice of self-investigation, because what we are trying to attend to when we're investigating ourselves in the waking or dream state is that pure I, but remains alone in sleep. So there are various other prakriyas, distinguishing what is changing from what is unchanging, what is temporary from what is permanent. That is everything, all phenomena are impermanent. They appear and disappear, and they're constantly changing. But in the midst of all this change, what is the one thing that remains unchanged? That is I. Oh no, I've changed so much. I was once a little boy or girl. Now I'm an old person. I've learned so many things, and meanwhile I'm completely different. That's all the things we identify with have changed. But the I who experienced, I was a little boy or I was a little girl, and the I that experiences itself now, I'm a grown adult, there's the same I. So the I itself is not changing. Everything else is changing. So these are various lines of reasoning to help us to distinguish ourselves from everything else. If we grasp these to at least a certain extent, we can begin this practice. That is, so long as we don't recognize the distinction between ourself and all these things that we now mistake to be ourself, if we try to investigate ourselves, we'll be investigating the wrong thing. If I think I'm this body, and I'm asked to attend to this body, I may do like Vipassana meditation, where you with your attention you try and scan the body and feel every sensation in the body. But these are all anya. They're all things other than ourselves. This body is not I. Or if we think I am a mind, then we can attend to the thoughts and things. But the thoughts are something other than ourselves. So we shouldn't attend to any object or phenomenon, anything that appears or disappears. We need to attend to that which is permanent, that which is the knower of all these things, namely ourself.
Which is our fundamental awareness.
Yes. Here we can just mention one small little point of clarification. Actually, the pure I is not what is aware of all these things. What is aware of all these things is ego. But ego is nothing other than that pure awareness. So if we turn our attention back to the perceiver will thereby subside, and what will remain is the pure awareness, which is the underlying reality of the perceiver. So in order to understand how to practice self-investigation, it's important to have a clear understanding of what Bhagavan is teaching us. Otherwise, when we're told to attend to ourselves, it will not be clear what we have to attend to. But all this analysis and reasoning, this is all helpful for clarifying the way. But these are all prerequisites. They are not the investigation itself. The investigation itself is fixing our attention on I alone. So having understood that I is not any of these things, not anything that is any object or phenomenon, anything that appears or disappears, anything that changes, anything that is impermanent, we then have to attend to I alone. The more we attend to I, the clearer it will become. So how to learn how to investigate ourselves? Only by investigating ourselves. The more we try to attend to ourselves, the clearer it will become to us what is meant by the term self-attentiveness or self-investigation.
It gets clearer and clearer with more and more practice.
Yes, yes. But that doesn't mean it gets easier, because when we clearly understand what the practice is, then what we're up against is the real obstacle, which is our own Vishaya vasanas, our own strong inclinations to attend to things other than ourselves. Because attending to things other than ourselves is the food on which ego exists, lives and thrives. So until the mind is very much purified in the sense of the Vishaya vasanas are considerably weakened, we will be constantly resisting attending to ourselves. In fact, this resistance will come to an end only when ego comes to an end. In other words, so long as we are still practicing, we'll be facing resistance. And the resistance is not coming from anywhere outside ourselves. It is we ourselves are resisting.
So we just have to start somewhere and get plunging, basically. Right? That's how we'll develop the love, and then the love in turn feeds and promotes the self-investigation, which in turn gives us more love and so forth. We get into the positive cycle.
Exactly.
So thank you, Michael. So that will me go to the question from Sarah. Michael, how do I stop the running commentary in my head when I practice self-investigation? If I investigate, invariably the mind thinks thoughts such as who in me is perceiving X, Y, Z. Does investigation imply deliberately posing who questions in the mind? How do I separate language words from meditation?
For whom are all these words? For whom are all these thoughts? We need to turn our attention away from the thoughts back towards the one to whom all these thoughts appear. And the only way to do so is by constant practice. We shouldn't set out with the idea that we can hold on to self-attentiveness uninterruptedly, that if we sit down for 20 minutes to meditate, we're going to be holding on to self-attentiveness uninterruptedly. It doesn't work like that. In practice, every moment of self-attentiveness, however brief that moment may be, is a step in the right direction. So Bhagavan says in Nana, however many thoughts arise, so what? Whenever any thought arises, we need to turn our attention, we need to investigate to whom it has arisen. Investigating to whom it's arisen means turning our attention away from whatever has appeared back towards ourselves, the one to whom it has appeared. So it doesn't matter how many times our attention is diverted away from ourselves towards other things, we have to turn it back again and again and again. This constant, whenever we turn our attention back to ourselves, we should try to hold on to that self-attentiveness. But in practice, that will very quickly slip away from us. And again, we have to turn our attention back. So this is the practice. And Bhagavan says, in the same 6th paragraph of Nana, Ipadi paraka paraka manataku tam pirapeditil tangi nikam shakti adikadi kindradu. By practicing and practicing in this way, for the mind, the strength to abide, to stand firmly in its source increases.
Right. those are the two most important statements there, right? I mean, எத்தனை எண்ணங்கள் எழும்பும், so how many thoughts rise, so what, and and then the statement.
But those statements have meaning only in the context in which they're said. So a whole passage is very, very important.
Right. So now let me go over to the next question that relates to this.
Millen and Stewart both have their hands up.
Who is the one meditating on Satchit? Is it the mental aspect of focus or attention? And attention.
That is, attention is a feature of ego. Satchit is pure awareness. For pure awareness, there is nothing other than itself. So there's no question of attending. It knows itself just by being itself. Attention is when many things appear, we use our attention selectively to attend to one thing or one set of things rather than other things. For example, if you're sitting on a busy train, you may, to pass the time, you may be reading a book. So many things may be happening around you. People will be having conversations. So many people will be going back and forth on the aisle. Because if you're really interested in the book, your whole attention will be on the book. So by attending to a book, you're filtering out all the other things. So attention is a focusing of our awareness. But what needs to focus its attention, its awareness, is ego. So it is as ego, but we are trying to meditate on ourselves, on what we actually are, which is Satchit. But so we don't experience Satchit as it is, because we still experience that Satchit, I am, mixed with adjuncts, but we need to try and attend to it more and more and more, and then the adjuncts will gradually drop off.
So it's the fault, if I have this right, it's the ego which has, sorry about that sound, it's the ego which has this quote unquote focused attention. The ego then focuses the attention on the I am, on the self, on itself, and then it simultaneously dissolves the ego and then eventually merges into the self, into self.
Into Satchit, pure being awareness.
Now I have one more question pretty quick. So in that process, lately I've noticed that I feel the dissolving, and then because I'm not sleeping great, I go to sleep. And the sleep is very nice, but I'm not awake for the for oneself.
It's okay.
Okay.
Sadhu Om used to say, if sleep comes, sleep well. You can't sleep forever. When you wake up, continue the practice. That is, our attention can be diverted away from ourselves in one of two ways. It can either be diverted away by thoughts, in other words, by attending to things other than ourselves, or it can be diverted by falling asleep. This is why in one of the Upanishads, this path is described as the razor's edge. We need to remain balanced between succumbing to thoughts on the one hand and succumbing to sleep on the other hand. We need to remain balanced between the two, neither sleeping nor thinking.
So
in order to remain balanced, we need to hold on to that self-attentiveness. So long as we're holding on to self-attentiveness, we cannot sleep and we cannot think of other things. If we sleep or think of anything else, it means we've lost hold of the self-attentiveness. Yes, sorry.
Exactly.
That's I didn't know when you were stopping. So just to finish that up, when the sleep happens, that's which is okay, just sleep well. Then it's the ego turning off. But not surrendering.
But ego can fall asleep only when it loses its hold on self-attentiveness.
Right. Okay.
Just like it can attend to other things Only when it loses its hold on self-attentiveness.
So same thing, really, but
it's the same thing. Well, I mean, it's just two sides. One of two things can happen. Either we get carried away by thoughts or we fall asleep.
I like the sleep part.
Well, sleep well. They sleep well, particularly if you're having problems sleeping because of your health condition.
Yeah.
By all means, sleep well.
And then wake up and then go back to it.
You can't sleep forever. So when you wake up, continue practice.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Kumar.
So you're welcome. And then next would be, let's go to Milan, and then I have two more. Milan, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to investigate together this mystery of Drishti Shrishti, because when I'm looking at it, it just looks like another way to talking about Ajatavada. Why? Because if it is simultaneously, there is no time and space there, and how it happens that now it looks like there is movement and there is interaction and time is passing, and we are, because of that, we are suffering. We are in the domain of death and Kali. But in Drishti Shrishti, this is not happening. If we are in the exact moment, we cannot catch it because there is no moment. Drishti Shrishti means that my talking now, you're listening, and this interaction is simultaneously. And simultaneously, it's a Jatavada in the... But what makes a glue? What makes a volume?
No. Drishti Shrishti and Ajata are not the same. Drishti Shrishti, if we follow the practice implied by Shrishti Drishti, it will lead to Ajata. But Drishti Shrishti is an explanation of the appearance of otherness, multiplicity. Now we experience multiplicity. So how to explain that? It's just a dream. That all the multiplicity that we experience, it has no existence whatsoever other than our experience of it. So it's all just a mental projection. It is just a dream, literally a dream. So if we understand this, to whom does this dream appear? To whom does all this multiplicity appear? To me. So if we turn our attention back towards the one to whom all these things appear, that one to whom they appear, namely ego, will subside. And if we go deep enough in this investigation, we will experience ourselves as pure awareness. By experiencing ourselves as pure awareness, we bring about the dissolution of ego, because ego is just a false awareness of ourselves. When we're aware of ourselves as we actually are, this false awareness is destroyed. When that false awareness is destroyed, it will be clear to us that it never actually existed in the first place. There never was any rising of ego. There never was any appearance of multiplicity. That is Ajata. Ajata is completely denying the rising of ego or the experience of multiplicity. But that cannot be, I mean, that is, as Bhagavan said, Ajata is not a teaching. Because in Ajata, there's no one to teach and no one in need of any teaching. There is only just pure being.
If I can remember, please contribute. Is this was Sadhu Om who talked that another way to do Atma-vichara is in looking for the so-called now moment?
Exactly. But we need to understand that correctly, because many people talk about what's his name?
Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, he's popularized this, the power of now or whatever it is. But he has the important distinction he hasn't grasped and he hasn't explained. That is, everything that happens in the present moment. But the present moment in which things happen has a duration. That is, things can only happen in the flow of time. So if something happens, every happening is a change, and change requires time. So the present moment in which things happen, in which we perceive things, experience things, and so on, is not actually the precise present moment. It's a small segment of time. It is an approximate present moment. The precise present moment is that infinitesimally fine interface between the past and future. If we try to dissect every moment down to its most basic element, a moment before is past, a moment ahead is future. Between that past and future, the interface is infinitesimal. That means it has no duration. So in the precise present moment, there is only being, not doing, not happening. Nothing is happening. There is only being. So we need to understand that. We need to understand that we're not trying to attend to other things in the present moment. That you also have that that's another thing in Vipassana meditation, the Buddhist practice of meditation, or the very popular form of Buddhist meditation. One of the practices is to try to do everything mindfully. So you try to be always in the present moment, but the present moment they're talking about is not the precise present moment, it's the approximate present moment. It's the present moment, that small segment in the flow of time that appears to be approximately present. But if you try to go very deep into what is the precise present moment, then in the precise present moment, there is no room for anything to happen, for anything other than yourself to be known. There is only pure being.
And we have Parmenides and Paradoxes of Zenon when they are showing this point very well.
Who?
Paradoxes of Zenon and Parmenides.
Okay. I don't know about that, but yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's logical that what things can happen only in the flow of time, but the precise present moment is not in the flow of time. That if you go deep into the present moment, you arrive only at pure being.
But this was my point with Drishti Shrishti, because we have the moment of Drishti Shrishti. Where is the second moment? We don't have a space between them.
But Drishti Shrishti is all happening in the flow of time. That is, time and space are part of the phenomena that we experience.
Drishti Shrishti is not something that necessarily should be celebrated. And let's put it that way.
No, it's not. That's the problem.
That's exactly the problem.
Seeing anything other than ourselves is a problem.
Exactly.
About this present moment, another thing that another useful line of reflection on this, when we talk of the now is the present moment, here is the present place. So what makes the present moment and the present place appear to be present? It is only the presence of ourself that makes this moment appear to be present, this place appear to be present. So if you go deep into the present moment or the present place, we arrive at our own presence.
We subside in our own presence.
Yeah. Is that clear?
Yeah. Milan, so we can go now. We good, right? Yeah, I'm assuming. Yeah, I think he's muted now. Okay, so now let me go on to the next question. Renuka is going back. She's got a question on devotion. In Peripuranam, the going back to prior discussion, I mean, in Peripuranam, the 9 Mars hold on to Shiva with great devotion. Although to us this feels like duality, is this the same as holding on to the self? I think you explained that, but you could specifically answer that question.
No, that is, these stories are talking about these great Shiva Bhaktas. Their Shiva Bhakti, if Shiva Bhakti is, or any Bhakti to any name or form of God, if it goes deep enough, it will eventually lead to, that is, as Bhagavan explains in Upadeshundya, the practices of Bhakti, puja, japa, and dhyana, if done without any expectation of result, if it's nishkamiya puja, nishkamiya japa, or nishkamiya dhyana, that will purify the mind. And that purified mind will gain the clarity to understand that God is not something other than ourselves. If God is something other than ourselves, then God is thereby limited. By viewing God as something other than ourselves, we're thereby limiting ourselves. Sorry, we're thereby limiting God, because if God is infinite, nothing can be other than God. Because if anything is other than God, God is thereby limited. We have the existence of God and not God. So if we are not God, we are thereby limiting God. So if God is infinite, as we have to accept he is, he cannot be anything other than ourselves. That doesn't mean I, this little person, am God. It means God is the reality of myself, the reality of this I, but I now have limited to this body. So that clarity comes naturally comes to the purified mind. So the purified mind will naturally turn within to surrender itself to God, to surrender itself to the true presence of God, which ever shining in our heart as I. So the bhakti will definitely, if it's pure bhakti, it will unfailingly lead to this path, because it will give the clarity, and in that clarity, the turn back within is very easy.
Thank you. I think I had to ask that question again to, I guess, to reinforce what I was thinking.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This is why Bhagavan often, we know how much Bhagavan loved the story of the Peripuranam, the stories in the Peripuranam. Bhagavan often used to tell the heart-melting stories of those saints. He also used to tell stories of saints from so many other traditions, from Bhakta-vichara, which is stories of saints belonging to the, I think that was mostly Maharashtra area, yes. So, and Bhagavan, when he talked about love poetry, he loved Manikavasika. He equally well loved Namalwa, who's one of the Vaishnava saints, because Bhagavan is seeing beyond the name and form to what is the essence of their love. Both in Manikavasika, I mean, this is just 2 examples, but many others, of course, but both Manikavasika and Namalwa, there's so many non-dualistic implications in their poetry. So Bhagavan saw the purity of their love and how their love had led them to that Advaita Anubhava, that experience of non-duality.
Right.
Does Ramana knows about Kabir?
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't,
of course, yeah.
but Bhagavan didn't know Hindi, so he obviously wouldn't know the verses of Kabir, but he used to tell stories about Kabir also. He told the story about when some Siddha came to challenge
Ramananda.
Ramananda, Kabir's guru. who hadn't even accepted Kabir as a disciple, because Ramananda was a very orthodox Brahmin, and he and his disciples considered Kabir to be untouchable. He was a Muslim. He was a Muslim weaver, totally unfit to be a disciple of Ramananda. But one day, a Siddha, someone who had been practicing some form of yoga in the Himalayas and had gained certain powers, came and was challenging all the local holy men. So he came and he challenged Ramananda. And Ramananda's a simple bhakta. He doesn't know, he doesn't have all these, he never had sought siddhi. So this siddha wanted to put Ramananda to shame. When Kabir was sitting in his shop weaving, he heard that this person had come and had challenged his guru. He said, "What is this? Who's he to challenge my guru?" So he was, at that time he was weaving, and he had the type of weaving loom he had meant he would hold a ball of thread and he would throw it from one side to the other as the loom moved. So he broke that, he broke the thread, and with that ball of thread in his hand, he ran out to find out where is this person who has the audacity to challenge my guru. So he finally, he asked people, and they said, there's this person. So he came to him and he said, "Who are you to challenge my guru? First, you have to challenge me." So that Siddha put his stick on the ground and got up on top of the stick by his yogic powers. Kabir doesn't have any siddhis, but he's a simple bhakta, but his bhakti is so pure. So he threw his ball of thread in the air, and the ball of thread stood as one long line. And he got up on top of that, and he challenged the Siddha who was far below him, "Come up and challenge me now." And that Siddha cannot do anything. Then only Ramananda and his disciples understood the pure bhakti of Kabir. Bhagavan told this story. So yes, Bhagavan certainly knew the story. He knew the story of so many great devotees from all over India.
Right. Thank you, Michael. Next question is to Stephen Sai. Please go ahead.
Hi. My question, or actually it's my experience, and I was grateful for Milan and his conversation to talk about where we came from to where we got to. I'm going to simplify it. I'm celebrating my 8th year with this group. So what I can give is an experience of my self-investigation 8 years ago and my self-investigation today. No, I'm not self-actualized. I'm not self-aware. I'm still on the train to the destination. However, the growth and development of my love is phenomenal. I have the ability now to see my life much differently in the practice. I may not have gotten there. I may not get there in this body, but I do have a destination and I am on the train. So the analogy of reading the book and filtering out all of the noise to read the book was excellent. And I highly recommend to anybody new to the group, wait 8 years from now, and I trust that you'll have the same inclination or something similar in the practice, that you will not be who I am today as opposed to who I am 8 years ago. So I wanted to share that. So this first satsang of this year is the first satsang 8 years ago. And the love that Michael speaks of, that Bhagavan has, is the experience I have now. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Yes, that's very true. But the important point is practice. Practice is absolutely essential. We can talk about these things, we can read about these things, but the real clarity will come only from practice. And as we go deeper in the practice, as you say, Stephen, that is, our whole outlook on life changes. Though we still experience the world just as we always experienced it, our view of it, our attitude towards it is very different. Now we're all getting older. However young or old we may be, we're all getting older. And as life progresses, particularly if we're following this practice, that is, it enables us, it gives us a type of detachment. We know this body is not going to be around forever. For those who are older, the end is coming probably sooner than for those who are younger, though we never know. It could be the next moment for any of us. But the concern about this body, the concern about the approaching old age, it just drops off. We know all these things are going to pass. Everything is going to pass. But the more we, by Bhagavan's grace, we go deep in the practice, the more detached we become, inwardly detached we become from all these things. Outwardly, we may seem to be just the same, but inwardly, we can feel somehow this world has less impact on us, less impression on us. It becomes more and more clear that this is just, I mean, what we all know, but we all constantly overlook. But this is just a passing show. None of it is real. What is real is only our own being, that fundamental awareness, I am.
Thank you for that, Michael. And also paired with that whole idea of self-investigation is the concept of, being now, like now. Yes. That investigation of that concept is equally powerful.
It's very useful, yes.
The usefulness for me in pragmatic terms is that, the past can't be changed and the future is not here yet. So all I have is now.
Yes.
And the more I put into the now, the richer the experience becomes of life. And so I wanted to put that in as well. Thank you.
And the one thing that is always now, the one thing that makes now, makes now present, is I. So if we really understand being in the present, it means being as we actually are, without rising as ego. The whole illusion of time, the whole illusion of ever-flowing time, which is swallowing everything, and is one day going to swallow us, or what we take ourselves to be, all that that arises only when we rise as ego. But the more we subside back into our being, the more time itself dissolves. It becomes unreal. Because the only reality is our own being, I am. And that is what is ever present, ever here and now.
And I leave you with, I am grateful for my experience of Bhagwan. And I'm grateful for the radio of
Yeah.
And I'm referring to you.
Well, maybe a rather poorly tuned radio, but if it's serving some function, it's okay. And ultimately, it's all his grace.
Thank you for acknowledgement. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Sanjay Lohia. You there?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Go
yes,
ahead.
please. So, sir, my question is regarding verse 16 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. When we investigate ourselves, except we, where is time and where is place? If we are a body, we will be ensnared in time and place. So I'll just stop here. What does ensnared in place means? Time I can understand, but how are we ensnared in place?
Where are you now?
In my house, in front of a computer screen.
So you're ensnared in space. You're limited to a little, in this vast world, you're occupying a tiny, tiny little space. We're currently occupying a tiny point in time and a tiny point in space.
And so we can also say that that when we die, we'll get a little space in our graveyard.
Yeah.
Also
except we won't be there to know it.
Yeah, we won't, but that's also an implication, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Because since the time will follow us, the space also we'll get is a very little space to be buried up.
This body is itself our grave. We don't have to wait for the death of the body to be put in a hole in the ground. This body is itself a grave for us. So if we want to resurrect from this grave, we need to hold on to our own being. And this grave will then drop off, and the infinite being that we actually are alone will remain.
We're trying to cremate the ego, not put it in a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
So one more question in this is, it's not exactly clear. When we investigate ourselves, except we, where is time and where is space? So the except we part, though you have explained it, but it's not very clear.
Okay, right. Well, this is this is a problem in translation, because in Tamil it's very clear. Namandri, which is what I translated as except we, Andri is used in two contexts. For example, in English, supposing you say, you say, there's no furniture in the room except a table. We use except, because a table is a piece of furniture. But supposing you say there's no chairs in the room, we can't say except a table, because a table is not a chair. We have to say there's no chairs in the room, but only a table. In Tamil, in both cases, the word Andri is used. So if it's that's so we can make that distinction in English if it's a statement, but when it's a question, we cannot adequately translate it. But if we convert that question, it's a rhetorical question, but what Bhagavan implies there is there is no time and space, but only we. But we can't use but only in a question. So that's why we have to translate as except. But it means the implication of that sentence in Tamil is very clear. But there's no time and space, but only we.
So we can have an alternate meaning to this. I was just thinking that except we, if we take this we to be ego, so we can take it that that other than ego, where is time and where is space? That could be the other implication.
It could mean that, but Bhagavan has, in the Kalivemba version, he put before that the first word of the verse is Nam, we. And before that, in the Kali Vemba version, he added Unara Nindra Porul. Porul means the reality or substance. Nindra means the standing substance, in other words, the enduring, the existing substance. Unara is an infinitive, meaning to know, but there it's used adverbally. The knowingly existing reality. We, the knowingly existing reality. In other words, what he implies by that is we who are Satchit.
He's not referring to ego there. He's referring to
he's not referring to ego. He's referring only to we as we actually are. The first verse of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, he also begins with the word Nam. Nam Ulhum Kandalal. Because we see the world. There we is referring to ego, but here we is referring to ourselves as we actually are.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Bhagavan uses very, very simple language, but we have to think deeply about it to understand exactly what he is saying. And it's difficult when we don't know the original language and we have to rely on translations. But even those who understand the original language often misunderstand it. That's why we have so many very poor translations.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Hello, Michael.
It is true as you say. Except ego, there's no time and space, but that is not what Bhagavan means there. There he means there is no time and space, but only we.
Yeah.
Only we as we actually are.
So that is also the implication, but that's not what he meant here.
Exactly. Exactly.
In his overall teaching, we can make out that implication.
Yes. That's why he says, if we have a body, we'll be ensnared in time and space.
Yes.
In an earlier version of when he first composed that verse, he composed in a slightly different form. And there he said, if we have a body, time will swallow us. But if we know ourselves, we will swallow time. Something that's not the exact, but that's the implication. So long as we take ourselves to be the body, time is certainly going to swallow us. When death comes, we're finished. And time will certainly bring death along with it. That's why one of the names of death is Kala. Time is death. But if we know ourselves as we actually are, then we will swallow time and space.
Yeah. Thank you.
We will then become Kala Kalan.
Kalan, yeah.
Kala Kalan is the name of Shiva, the death to death. Because Shiva is the one who swallows time.
The time.
Yes, sorry, you
meant
someone else was about
time,
to ask.
Right? Death to time.
Yes.
Kala Kala.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Go ahead. Last question.
Hello, Michael. I have three sub questions, but the main first question is, when I'm doing the who am I am trying to investigate myself. I get that. But then these are all at this point done by the mind. So the mind comes up with the question, am I wasting time versus going full-fledged in my career? Let's say that's one of the things that plays. Now, a third thing comes up saying, why am I investigating versus why I'm not going for the career thought? Why am I giving importance to this thought versus that thought? Both are equal in my thing. Do you see how the mind can trick? First of all, did you understand the question? So that yeah. So how do you bear? That's a real thing for me. It happens sometimes. I'm successful most of the time in investigating. Sometimes this conundrum comes. How do you deal with that?
Doesn't matter what thought comes. Any thought will draw our attention away from ourselves. So it doesn't matter what the thought is. We need to have that determination to try to hold on to our own being. And whenever our attention is diverted away from ourselves towards any thought, we need to turn our attention away from the thought back to ourselves, the one to whom the thought appears.
But as I try to articulate, in my mind, it sees both are equally potent thoughts. Why I'm taking the side of one versus the other is a real conflict I get into at times.
If we think deeply about
and one more thing, Michael, before you answer. You said we need to be determined in going in this direction. Yeah. Who is that we are talking about at that point? Is that the mind or the ego sense we?
Mind or ego, the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That is, we must have the love to know what we actually are. And if we've thought deeply about Bhagavan's teachings, it'll be very clear to us why this is more important than any other thing. Because the career and the success or failure of the career, these are already determined by prarabdha. There's nothing we can do to change any of these things.
Okay. I mean, it's more than going in the direction of career. It's about giving importance to one thought versus the other thought is fundamentally what I'm getting after here.
We shouldn't give importance to any thought. To whom are all these thoughts?
But that also is a thought, right?
Yes and no. Bhagavan metaphorically, in the sixth paragraph, in the second sentence of the sixth paragraph, he metaphorically refers to this investigation as a thought. He says, the thought, who am I, destroying all other thoughts, will in the end itself be destroyed, like the stick used for joy. There he refers to it as a thought, but that is a metaphorical use of the word thought. That is, attending to anything other than ourself is a thought. Putting our mind on anything other than ourself is a thought. So when we put our mind or direct our attention towards ourself, we can metaphorically describe it as thinking of ourself. Bhagavan also uses words like Atma-vichara. Atma-vichara literally means thought of oneself. He also uses the term Swarupa Dhyana, meditation on oneself. But these are not thoughts or meditation like any other thought or meditation. We have to say, when Bhagavan refers to this as a thought, it's a metaphorical use of the word thought. It's not a literal thought.
Okay. So
a literal thought is a mental activity, whereas directing our attention back to ourselves is not a mental activity, it's a cessation of mental activity. It's a cessation of that which is active, namely ego. That is, by attending to ourselves, we as ego subside. And when we subside, our activity all subsides along with us.
Okay. By the way, we have this Ramakrishna's idea about Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya.
Yes.
So yes. In both cases, it is Maya. Yeah. We are going after liberation. This is Maya, but this is Vidya Maya. Yeah. This is the only way to go because we are in Maya. Liberation is Maya. Idea about liberation is Maya because we are Brahman by definition.
Yes.
But this is the only way. So yes. Ramakrishna in this case will say, go after the thought about liberation. This yes. is Vidya Maya.
Yeah. What he described as Vidya Maya is what is otherwise called grace.
Yes.
That is, there is only one power. That one power, it's up to us how we use it. If we use that power to go outwards, that is Maya, or what in that context he refers to as avidya Maya. Whereas if we turn that same power, the power of the Chit Shakti, the power of knowing, the power of awareness, back on itself, that is Vidya Maya. So Maya and grace are not two different things. They're the same power, but directed in two different directions or used in two different ways. So that power is our power. We have to decide how we want to use it.
And is this the same with attention in the end?
Yes,
this paramount importance of self-attention, where attention will go.
Attention is Chit Shakti. It's the power of knowing, the power of awareness.
Will be quick. So Michael, I appreciate that. I think that gives me some clarity. It's a real thing for me. The conflict happens within me. It fights saying why I'm going in this direction versus the other.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you told me. That's, I think, okay for me for now.
Yeah.
Two real quick questions. You can choose to be brief if you want on these because these are just theoretical. One is, you said Deha bandha or deha, attraction to deha atma bhava. So the ego is ego because it's attached to the body. Is there a mind aspect there too? Is it a combination of both? When we say body, do we need just body or is it the mind also there?
When Bhagavan refers to body, he says in verse 5 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, Urul Pancha Kosa Uru, the body is a form of 5 sheaves. So all the 5 sheaves are included in the term body.
Okay, so my mind is included. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
The next is you use the term love. Love is something always I struggled with that term as an engineer. Never, I always struggle with that. But can you give it a little more dab into it a little bit? What you meant by love there? In the beginning of your conversation in today's session?
There are some words we use. We know what the words mean when we use them, but we can't define them. Can we all know what awareness is, but can we say what awareness is? We all know what love is, but we can't say what it is. It's, we can give pointers, but nothing, we can't, just like we can't adequately define awareness, we can't adequately define love. Love is actually our real nature. We ourselves are love. But when we rise as ego, just like we limit ourself, we limit our existence, we limit our awareness, we limit our happiness, and we limit our love by rising as ego. So the limited form of love is what we experience as likes and dislikes, desires and attachments and hopes and fears and so on. These are all distortions.
Okay.
But so when we direct our love away from ourselves towards anything else, that we call desire. When we direct our desire back towards ourselves, that is love.
Gotcha. I mean, that's good. I think that makes sense to me. And finally, the false ourselves, which is the ego, there's nothing other than I, but the ego is created by the real I.
Ego is never created. Ego doesn't actually exist. Ego is we seem to be ego now because we haven't attended to ourselves. If we attend to ourselves, that's if we attend to I, ego will subside and dissolve back into the pure I, and then it will be clear that that pure I alone always exists.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ram.
Michael, just to...
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you say, did I hear that last conversation? No, I think it was, anyway, earlier. Did you say Avidya Maya was grace or that Vidya Maya was grace?
I may have missaid it, but I meant Vidya Maya is grace.
Oh, okay. But in a way, Avidya Maya is grace because it forces us to turn within.
Ultimately, yes. Ultimately, ultimately, all is only grace.
Everything.
Yes. But what we call Maya is just our misuse of grace. Let's say it's simple. There's just one power. That power is the power of love, the infinite power of love, which is called grace. And it's also the same as what is called Chit Shakti, the power of awareness. We misuse that by directing our attention and our desire towards other things. So Maya is nothing but a misuse of grace.
By the ego.
By the ego, which is itself Maya.
Which is itself Maya.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is the essence of Maya.
Yeah.
So
which is actually nothing other than, as Bhagavan says, self,
yeah.
In verse 6 of Arunachal Ashtakam, Bhagavan says, Undoru Porul Arivoli Ulameni. There is one reality or one substance, you, the heart, the light of awareness. There is only one substance, you, the heart, the light of awareness. In that, not other than that, there is a Adiseya Shakti, a wonderful power. That wonderful power is what is called mind or Maya. And that is what creates all this world.
Why is it wonderful?
It's something extraordinary. Adiseya. It's not, wonder is not said in an appreciative manner. It's something, Maya is something, it is wonderful. How Maya means she who is not.
Right.
But she who is not created all this problem. So it's a great wonder.
Last quick thought. So ego and form arise simultaneously, but they don't actually arise. Form is ego and ego is form that don't actually arise but appear to arise.
Well, ego is formless, but when ego cannot rise as ego without projecting and grasping form as itself. But it seems to arise so long as it's looking at forms. Instead of looking at forms, if it looks at itself to see who am I who sees all these forms, to whom do all these forms appear, it will thereby subside and then it will be clear, but it had never actually risen.
So ego and things are not the same.
Well, they are. Bhagavan says, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ego itself is everything.
Right. So I guess ego and form are one, and they arise.
Yeah. Though
Am I right?
Ego, the essential nature of ego is formless, because what ego essentially is pure awareness.
Yeah.
But it cannot rise without grasping form.
Right.
Grasping form means the forms don't exist there prior to its grasping them. So grasping form implies projecting and grasping.
Right. But so the rising itself is the creation of form.
Exactly.
Once we think we are that arisen form, then the lack of Atma-vichara creates the Maya.
You can say that. But our very rising as ego is avichara.
Right.
It's turning our attention away from ourselves.
Right.
But it's all Maya, so don't worry about it. Maya is not at all real. Just hold on to what is real. And the unreal will take care of itself. It will slip off because it's unreal.
Exactly.
It's never there.
Right. That's why I'm a cartoon character today.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.